Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to flip the script on how we think about food. See, it's not just what's on your plate. It's about how and, maybe even more importantly, when you eat. We're going to build what I like to call a metabolic toolkit. So here's the game plan. First, we'll unpack the big metabolic problem a lot of us are dealing with. Then we'll start adding tools to our toolkit one by one. Food quality, then food combination, and finally, food timing. And at the end, we'll bring it all together so you have a clear, actionable strategy to walk away with. All right, let's get right into it. The first piece of the puzzle is understanding the real problem. And honestly, it's like there's this invisible traffic jam happening right inside our bodies, at the cellular level.
I mean, how many of us have asked this, right? You think you're doing everything right, you're trying to eat well, but you're still exhausted, and maybe the weight just isn't budging. It's super frustrating. Well, the answer often comes down to this one key concept: metabolic inflexibility. So this is the real culprit. Think of your mitochondria as these tiny power plants inside your cells. They're built to be flexible. They're supposed to switch seamlessly between burning carbs for quick energy and burning fat for steady fuel. But here's the problem. When we flood them with too much of both at the same time, they just freeze up. It's that traffic jam we talked about. Fuel can't get where it needs to go, insulin signals get all messed up, and the end result? We feel tired and run down.
Okay, so if our cells are stuck in gridlock, how do we get things moving again? Well, it all starts with the absolute foundation. The first, most important tool in our kit, the quality of the food we're eating. This part is, seriously, non-negotiable.
Let's geek out for a second on fats, because not all fats are created equal. When we eat a lot of saturated fats, our cells can end up with a buildup of this nasty stuff called DAG. And DAG is bad news. It basically throws a wrench in our insulin signaling. But unsaturated fats, they are the good guys. They get stored away safely as something called TAG. And here's the really cool part. They can actually help steer the bad saturated fats away from that harmful DAG pathway. It's like they're running interference for us.
And if you're wondering just how big this problem is, get this. One study found that on average, people were eating 415% more of one specific saturated fat than the absolute upper limit. I mean, that's just a staggering number. It really shows you how overloaded our bodies have become.
But hey, food quality isn't just about the fats. We have to talk about fiber. Fiber, especially the kind you get from things like beans, lentils, pulses, it is an absolute metabolic superhero. What it does is it slows everything down. It slows down how fast you digest carbs, which means you don't get that crazy blood sugar spike after you eat. And the results are real. We're talking major, measurable improvements, not just right after a meal, but for long-term insulin health too.
All right, so we've got our foundation, quality ingredients. Now it's time to add the next tool, and this one is all about strategy. It's about how we combine foods to avoid that metabolic traffic jam we keep talking about. And here it is, the big rule. Probably the most important takeaway from this section. Don't mix high-fat and high-carb foods in the same meal. It's that simple. When you do that, you're creating the perfect storm for that mitochondrial gridlock. You're basically asking your cellular engines to burn gas and diesel at the exact same time. It's not going to work. So what does this look like in the real world? Let's make it practical. Think about something like a creamy pasta dish. That's a classic fat plus carb bomb. Instead, you could go for a meal that's mostly protein and fat, like grilled salmon with a big side of roasted veggies. Or what about pizza, another fat-carb combo? Maybe you swap that for a meal that's carb and fiber-focused, like a really good bean chili. See the pattern? The idea is to pick a lane for each meal, either fat and protein or carb and fiber.
Okay, we've covered quality and combination. Now for the final tool in the kit. And this one is all about precision. It's about timing, because it turns out when you eat might be just as important, if not more important, than what you're eating.
This strategy has a name. It's called early time-restricted eating, or eTRE for short. And the logic is actually pretty simple. It's all about syncing up your meals with your body's internal clock, your circadian rhythm. Here's the deal. Our bodies are just better at handling food earlier in the day. Our metabolism is fired up, our insulin sensitivity is at its peak in the morning. As the day goes on, that efficiency drops off. So eating earlier just means you're giving your body fuel when it's most ready to use it. And check this out. One of the coolest side effects of this is how it affects hunger. There was a study where they had two groups eat the exact same amount of food, the same number of calories. The only difference was one group ate most of their calories early in the day and the other group ate them late. The result? The morning eaters were way less hungry all day long. So this isn't some weight loss trick. It's about managing your own biology. When you're not constantly battling hunger, it's so much easier to stick with your plan. But we can get even more granular with timing. We can zoom in from the time of day, right down to the order of the food on your plate. This is such a simple hack, but it is so powerful. The rule is, eat your fiber, your protein, and your fats before you get to the simple carbs or starches. Just changing the sequence of bites can completely change how your body processes that meal. So you're probably asking, why on earth would that work? Well, it's actually pretty elegant. Eating the protein and veggies first tells your body to release these fullness hormones, like GLP-1. It also physically puts a buffer in your stomach, which slows down the digestion of the carbs that come later. The bottom line, a much smaller blood sugar spike, and you feel full and satisfied for a lot longer. It's such a tiny change for such a huge biological win. Okay, we have looked at quality, combination, and timing. We've gathered all our tools. Now let's put it all together into a simple, coherent strategy. Your personal metabolic toolkit. So here it is, the whole strategy boiled down to 4 key steps. Number 1, prioritize quality. That means swapping out bad fats for good fats and loading up on fiber. Number 2, separate your fuels. Don't eat high-fat and high-carb meals together. Pick a lane. Number 3, eat earlier. Work with your body's natural clock, not against it. And finally, number 4, sequence your plate. Veggies and protein first, starches last. That's it. That's the toolkit.
And this all leads to a really powerful realization, one that kind of changes the whole conversation. It's not just about weight. The science is pretty clear on this now. The pattern of how you eat, your dietary strategy, can be a more important factor for your risk of insulin resistance than just your body mass index. Think about that for a second.
So I'll just leave you with this one final thought. What if the key to feeling better, to having more energy, to really getting a handle on your health, isn't about finding the, quote, perfect diet? What if it's about having the right strategy? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me.